Hello, I'm Oliver Colling, and this is the My 70s TV Childhood quiz. Hello, and welcome back to the latest instalment of our quiz, which is a companion to our regular podcast, My 70s TV Childhood, which looks fondly back to what it was like to grow up in 1970s Britain and the important part that TV played in our childhoods. If this is your first time listening, then you are most welcome. And if you're a regular listener, it's great to have you back with us. Now, this is the 30th edition of our quiz, so if you've listened to them all, well done. Just for fun, as we always say, and we will be asking you 4 rounds of 5 questions each. Each correct answer gets you a point, and, well, that's about it, really. Sounds quite straightforward, doesn't it? Okay, so without further ado, let's move on to our first round. And round 1 is a Halloween special with a few questions on things which scared us during the 1970s. Question 1. Tales of the Unexpected provided plenty of frights and scary stories. But what year was it first broadcast? Question 2. The 1960s Charlie Brown Peanuts cartoons were shown throughout the 70s, including a Halloween special where Linus doesn't want to join the rest of the gang for a party, but waits alone, waiting for what to appear in the pumpkin patch. Question 3. Witches featured in the BBC serial Lizzie Dripping, but who played the title role of Lizzie Dripping? And question 4. Now, I mentioned the faceless nun many times in our podcast as being an incredibly scary moment. And I'm sure lots of you do remember that rocking chair with the faceless... Oh dear, no, it's going to give me nightmares. But anyway, which show did the faceless nun feature in? And question 5, probably the most ghost-laden show in the 1970s must have been Scooby Doo. Although, to be fair, there were rarely any real ghosts. Rather, Mr. Dean from the grocery store pretending to be a mummy to scare off people who might discover the old gold mine, or etc., etc. Anyway, in the show, who provided the original voice of Shaggy? So who was the voice of Shaggy in Scooby Doo? How's that? I hope you made a good start. Now let's move on to round 2. And this is our marathon or fil rouge round, where I ask you some questions about subjects we've featured in episodes of our podcast since we started way back in 2020. Question 1. In November 2023, we look back to the Wheeltappers and Shunters Social Club. Who was the chairman of the committee who used to interrupt the acts with announcements? Question 2. Catweasel was featured in one of our episodes in February 2022. Which century was Catweasel transported from to end up in the 1970s? Question 3. In our recent episode on Rainbow, we spent time talking about Geoffrey Hayes, the presenter that most of us remember well. But who was the first presenter of Rainbow? And the clue, it wasn't Geoffrey Hayes. And question 4. In May 2023, we looked back at the Waltons. Who was the eldest of the 7 Walton children? So who was the eldest of the Walton children? And question 5. In the same episode, we also looked back to Happy Days. Now that show was remarkable in many ways, but it also produced 7 spin-offs, no less. Can you name the spin-off featuring an alien that came from Happy Days? So which Happy Days spin-off featured an alien? Okay, halfway through already. And next we have our famous Spin the Wheel and Name That Tune mashup combo round. That sounds good, doesn't it? Hopefully you won't be too disappointed. In this round, I spin our specially constructed Wheel of Fate, which will give me a year from the 1970s, and then I will input that year into our state-of-the-art AI-powered theme tune generator, which will then spit out theme tunes from 5 TV shows which were first shown on UK TV that year. So that's probably as clear as mud to you, but anyway, let's play and I'm sure it will all become crystal clear. Right, so let's spin the wheel. And it's landed on 1979. So let me feed that into our AI-powered theme tune generator and... Right, here's theme tune 1. And theme tune 2. And on to theme tune 3.
Just a good old boy, never meaning no harm. Beats all you never saw, been in trouble with the law since the day they was born. Straightening the curves, flattening the hills. Someday the mountain might get 'em, but the law never will. Making their way the only way they know how. That's just a little bit more than the law will allow. Just a good old boy.
Love that one. I hope you all do at home. And theme tune 4. And finally, theme tune 5. How are those? Quite a challenging mix, I think. And we're on to our final round already. And this is our TV Times round, where we can ask you questions on literally anything that's 1970s TV trivia related. So here we go. Question 1. Who played Van der Valk in the 1970s TV show of the same name? Question 2, and there is a link with question 1 if you can work it out. Barry Morse was one of the stars in the first series of Space 1999. What was the name of the character he played? Question 3. Joe 90, although it was made in the late 60s, was a favourite throughout the 70s. What was the surname of Joe and his father? Question 4. Who wrote the theme tune to Crossroads? Doon, 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 doon. Well, you know. Who wrote that? And finally, question 5. Who was the gardener on Blue Peter from 1974 to 1987? And that's it for another quiz. Now, while you're checking your answers, let's go back to last time's bonus question. I asked you this. In 1975, ITV released a sitcom based in Liverpool about a sailor who'd returned home after 2 years at sea. It features sitcom stalwart Ken Jones, better known as Ives in Porridge, alongside the likes of Alison Steadman and a young Keith Chegwin. It was so badly received by audiences that the final episode was never shown. What was it called? And the answer is The Whackers. Well done if you got that one. This week's bonus question is this. Which children's TV show was first shown on BBC One on the 4th of April 1972 and is still going today? If you know the answer, then you can let me know by dropping a line to quiz@my70stvchildhood.com. And you can also let us have any comments on the quiz by sending an email to that address as well. And don't forget, we are still looking for questions and answers for our Christmas quiz, which will be entirely sourced by listener-provided questions. We've had some great questions and answers so far, but we need more. So let me have your most challenging questions, either as a round of 5, or I don't mind having individual ones as well. And you may hear them in our pre-Christmas quiz episode. Okay, let's move on to this time's answers. Round 1, our Halloween special. Question 1, Tales of the Unexpected was first broadcast in 1979. Question 2, the Halloween special from Peanuts, where Linus doesn't want to join the rest of the gang for a party but waits alone in the pumpkin patch waiting for what? And that is The Great Pumpkin. Question 3, who played the title role in Lizzie Dripping? And it was Tina Heath, later to be a Blue Peter host and host of The Sunday Gang, both of which we've covered in previous episodes of our podcast. And question 4, the faceless nun that I mentioned many times in the podcast, as it's one of the most scary things I've ever seen in my whole life. Which show did it feature in? It featured in a series called Armchair Thriller. And question 5, in Scooby Doo, who was the original voice of Shaggy? And the original voice of Shaggy was Casey Kasem, who was just as well known as the presenter of America's Top 100. How very strange. All right, on to our Marathon Phil Rouge round. In the Wheeltappers and Shunters Club, who was the chairman of the committee? And that was Colin Crompton. Question 2, which century was Catweasel transported from to end up in the 1970s? He came from the 11th century. Question 3, who was the first presenter of Rainbow? So not Jeffrey, but who was the presenter before Jeffrey? And that was David Cook. Question 4, who was the oldest of the 7 Walton children? And that was John Boy, of course. Good night, John Boy. And question 5, in the same episode when we featured the Waltons, we look back at Happy Days, which had an unbelievable 7 spin-offs. But what was the spin-off featuring an alien? Well, that was Mork and Mindy, of course. All right, halfway through, on to our Spin the Wheel, Name That Tune round. The first theme tune, well, that was a theme tune to Shelley, which a number of you mentioned in your correspondence, and I think maybe due for a future episode. Theme tune 2, this was the theme tune to Flambards. And theme tune 3, hopefully many of you have got that. That was the theme tune to the Dukes of Hazzard, which forms part of lots of people's Saturday tea time memories from the late 70s. Theme tune 4 was a bit trickier. That was a theme tune to Crib. And if you remember, that was the dramatisation of the Victorian policeman Sergeant Cribb's mysteries. And theme tune 5, a bit of a giveaway with the applause over the theme tune. That was a theme tune to Kelly Monteith. Again, a big favourite with many of you who've been in contact with the show. All right, on to our TV Times round. Question 1, who played Van der Valk? And that was Barry Foster. Question 2, Barry Morse. You see, there's the clue. If you got the first one, it makes the second one a little easier. Barry Morse is one of the stars in the first series of Space 1999, but what was the character he played called? And that was Professor Victor Bergman. I'm not sure what happened to him for the second series, but he disappeared. Question 3. Joe 90. What was the surname of Joe and his father? Their surname was McLean. And question 4. Who wrote the theme tune to Crossroads? Well, that was the great Tony Hatch. And question 5. Who was the gardener on Blue Peter from 1974 to 1987? I would imagine many of you got this. That was Percy Thrower. So, how did you do? Are you set for Halloween with a huge orange pumpkin to carve up? Or are you fiddling about with a small turnip and a penknife? Whichever, I hope you've enjoyed our quiz. And if you have enjoyed the quiz, then why don't you tell your friends? And whilst you're doing that, ask them to try our regular podcast too. We'll be back in a week's time with our next regular podcast, and in a fortnight with the next edition of our quiz. So don't forget to like, rate and review us wherever you get your podcasts. Take care, look after each other, and join us again soon for more from My 70s TV Childhood and the My 70s TV Childhood quiz.